Hello and welcome to the Confident Musicianing Podcast. My name is Eleanor and I am a British American oboist studying at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, literally my dream school. And it took me a long way to get there. I applied and auditioned for 12 schools in 3 different countries. It was a lot of hard work, but oh my gosh, so worth it. I want you to have the confidence to work hard in achieving your goals. So come with me as we go on this journey together. So sit down, pull up a chair, take a seat, or if you're on the go, welcome to the Confident Musicianing Podcast. As musicians, we all struggle with practice motivation. I think it depends on kind of what phase we are in, what stage we are in, but I think every single musician has felt this feeling of not being motivated to practice. And I think something that I've heard being passed around and being said that I think is really, really helpful when thinking about motivation is that we don't have motivation and then we practice. Motivation comes from momentum. So in order to kind of get motivation, we need to start the thing. And then when we see our progress or we see, we see our start, then the motivation will come after that. So I think in today's episode, we are going to be talking a lot about trying to get that motivation, 3 ways to boost your practice motivation. But as you are listening to these 3 things, I think it's really important to kind of remember that about motivation. It doesn't necessarily come from the beginning. It comes from once you have that start, and then you'll keep going with motivation and you'll keep going with your practice. I think our practice as well looks different for everyone. For instance, me 2 years ago, I had a practice set up where I practiced 3 hours a day, and each day I would have 1 hour session in the morning, 1 hour session in the afternoon, and 1 in the evening. And that was something that really worked for me. It worked for my schedule. It worked for like how much I could actually play the instrument at a time. But now my life has changed and I have kind of a different schedule, and also I am learning a different kind of oboe playing that is more fatiguing because it's a whole new setup, and I guess I'm like training muscles in like my embouchure that aren't used to being used. And so an hour at a time for me is a lot. And so now I break it out into smaller, more frequent chunks. So things like that, everyone's practice is different. So kind of going into this episode, I think it's important to remember these things. So without further ado, let's get into it. So 3 ways to boost your practice motivation, whatever that looks like for you, because we all practice differently. But if you are feeling a little like maybe you need a bit more motivation in the practice room, that's what this episode is for. So the first thing that helps me at least is the 10-minute trick. You might have heard about this or you might not have, either way. Basically, the 10-minute trick is this idea of if we are struggling to start something, especially if it is a big thing and we're like, oh my gosh, this thing is going to take so long. Or, by the time we finish this thing, it'll already be this specific time or whatever it is. Just say to yourself, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes. I'm going to take 10 minutes. I'm really going to focus. I'm going to really get my head in the game. I'm all in it for 10 minutes. And that makes it so that it's not as big and scary. And then once you've gotten to the 10-minute mark, if you want to keep going, then keep going. If you want to stop, then okay, stop. But if you want to keep going, then keep going. And this goes kind of into the idea of motivation being not when you start something, but when you're going into it. Because if you don't have motivation before those 10 minutes, you feel kind of like, ugh, I don't really want to do this. But then maybe by minute 7, when you're really getting into it and you're having fun, and then maybe minute 8 is even more fun, and all of a sudden the motivation is coming after 10 minutes. And then you're like, oh, actually I could continue this for another 10 minutes, maybe another 20 minutes, maybe only another 5 minutes, but it is an extra 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? So I think that this trick is really helpful, and it really kind of ties into the idea that motivation does not come at the beginning. It comes as you are doing something. And I think that that goes for more than just practicing, but that's something good to remember when practicing. Okay, the next thing kind of goes into this idea and the 10-minute trick. I feel like all of these things kind of weave into each other, but that is analyzing your schedule. Okay, are you putting too much on your plate, right? Are you doing too much? Now, sometimes we can't control how much we're doing. Right now, I am preparing for not only an exam resit, but also a recital. And so I have a ton of music. I have 2 pieces of music, like full on pieces, 3 movement long pieces, right? And then I have like many extracts, different extracts from 6 different pieces of music, but like each piece of music has at least like 5-ish extracts each, give or take. And then I have scales, and then 2 etudes. So all of these things I am doing are just, it's a lot, really. It's a lot. And a lot of times when I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do oboe wise, it can be very, very stressful and very overwhelming, to the point that I'm like, how am I gonna do this, right? And then that motivation's like plop. It's just like out the window, we're done, right? So when we think about our schedule, even if we can't say, for instance, okay, I'm just not going to practice this at all, because you need to practice it, but think about how you are scheduling your practice, and if it is a lot. So for instance, if you are doing how I did 2 years ago, and 2 years ago this worked for me, but now it doesn't, so it's a bit different. But if I did 3 1-hour sections where I just did all that, and then if that's maybe what you're doing and it doesn't seem to be working for you, maybe try doing 4 to 6 half-an-hour sessions. Or maybe you get, like, in the morning, maybe you practice the best in the morning, so you do 2 hours in the morning and then maybe an hour in the afternoon. Or maybe 3 hours isn't what, like, good, like, it doesn't work for you. So maybe you do 1 hour in the morning and then 2 half-an-hour sessions in the afternoon and the evening. Whatever works for you is what's going to work for you. And I think the most important thing when thinking about analyzing your schedule, especially when it comes to motivation, is not comparing yourself to others, because other people might be able to do different things, but that doesn't pair up to you. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not good to compare these 2 things. And I think especially, like, for example, recently I was in a class with some other music students, and we were chatting about our practice. And one of the things that I honestly was like, it's such an eye-opener for me, was the other students, they practiced, a lot of them practiced, well, they all practiced differently. Right? So for me at the time, I was like, okay, I'm not practicing the way I did 2 years ago, where I did, 1-hour sessions 3 times a day. Instead, I'm doing it more frequently and less, because I need more breaks, because I'm changing styles, and it's more fatiguing for me at this point. And I often felt like, okay, that means, I compared myself to other people, because I assumed that they were practicing like probably a lot. And the thing about it was, when I was talking to them, they had their own things. So some of them practiced in 1-hour chunks, but a lot of them were like me, where they were like, okay, actually half-an-hour chunks are much better for me, and I do them more frequently. And it was so good to see everyone, like, how they do their practice differently. And so I think when we analyze our schedules, make sure that that schedule is good for you. Right? If it doesn't matter what someone else's practice schedule looks like. If this schedule works for you, then it works for you. But if you are struggling with motivation, maybe asking yourself, is it because I am scheduling my practice in a way that isn't serving me, and that means that my motivation is going down? So looking at that is a really great way to do that. And something about that, when I recently was kind of changing my practice schedule, working through this, because I have recently switched oboe styles, and I am needing more frequent practice sessions that aren't as long because of fatigue. I am training my embouchure to do something different. one thing that has really helped me is planning my practice. And not only planning my practice, but also reflecting on how these things worked. That way I can try a practice schedule and then reflect on how I thought it went. And then the next day I can try a different one, or maybe the next week I can try a different one. And I have it all in one place so that I can look and be like, okay, I did this type of schedule and this is what I thought of it. And so I can have that. And one of the things that has really helped me with that is a Notable practice journal. If you've never heard of Notable, you're in for a treat, because Notable's practice journals really seriously have changed the game for me, at least with practicing, seriously. So what it is it's a journal where you can plan your practice. So you plan out what you're going to do, and this helps you in the practice room to have effective and focused sessions. And it also means that you know when you're done, right? You know when you're done practicing because you've completed everything that you set out to do. And that also can help with the motivation as well, having a checked off list, right? We all love a checklist. And then there's also areas to reflect. So not only just reflect on your everyday practice, but also at the end of the week, you can do some reflection, and there's reflection questions in there. And this is perfect if you are analyzing your practice schedule, if you try a schedule, and then in the reflection section, you can be like, okay, doing this, that, and the other at these times really helped me, but maybe doing this other thing wasn't as good. And through that, you can create your own practice schedule, which is great for all of us. So honestly, a Notable practice journal has seriously helped me in my practice organization and effectiveness. And I think, it's just so helpful. And as soon as I found out that this journal was helping me, I knew that I needed to tell you about it, and I knew that I needed to give you a code. So use code Eleanor15 for 15% off your journal. That is ELEANOR15 for 15% off your journal. And get yourself a nice practice journal. We all deserve a nice practice journal. You know me, I don't ever recommend anything that I don't absolutely love. This code is an affiliate code, which means I do receive a commission with no extra cost to you. All right, let's move on, shall we? The next thing is getting inspired by other people. Getting inspired by other people. So we can do so many things with this, because motivation can not only come from us, but it can also come in the form of inspiration. If we take inspiration and then we turn it into motivation for our own practice, that is a great way to kind of create the motivation as well. So that means going to the symphony, playing with other people. So these are two different things. So if we go to the symphony, we're watching the symphony, right? And maybe, I remember like all the time if I went to go see like an oboist play the oboe at the symphony, if they're doing like the Mozart oboe concerto, for instance. I remember one time I went to go see the Mozart oboe concerto being performed, and I went away from that concert being like, oh my gosh, all I want to do is practice. This is so cool. Oftentimes I find, especially when I go see my instrument being performed, I'm like, all I want to do is practice. So that's a great way of doing it. Another great way of getting inspired by other people is playing with other people. So if you set up, like a group with some friends and you just play, and even if it's honestly not serious, like if it's just for fun, you just download some music somewhere and just like do whatever, that can be so fun as well. Right? And then you can come back home and be like, oh my gosh, I want to practice because that was really fun, and that can be really inspiring as well. So whatever that looks like to you, whether you can play with others, maybe you want to get a group together, maybe you want to go to the symphony. Even I found watching the ballet has helped me in my motivation to practice, because oftentimes, and I think this is a completely other conversation that I want to touch on, but oftentimes when I play the oboe, I imagine ballerinas. I feel like the oboe is very much it can be quite a poised instrument. It can be quite like delicate and detailed and all of these things that I find ballerinas are. And so I found, like, even just in my free time, I will watch, like, there are ballet rehearsals that you can watch on YouTube with like the Royal Ballet and I will watch those, and then when I practice I feel more motivated to like sound the way that they dance. And that's a whole nother story that we can get into. But maybe something like that for you. Maybe it's not ballet, but maybe, you play an instrument that in your mind reminds you of something, and that can help you motivate or get motivated to practice. So all of these things are different ways to help you get motivated to practice, because we all need that little kick of motivation. Let's do a recap, shall we? The first thing is the 10-minute trick. If you feel not motivated and you're like, ugh, I don't want to practice, just practice for 10 minutes. And then when 10 minutes is up, be like, do I want to keep going? Chances are you might. The next thing is analyze your schedule. Are you putting too much on your plate? And even if you aren't putting too much on your plate, are you doing it in a way that isn't serving you? Maybe big practice sessions aren't as good as maybe shorter, more frequent ones. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you are just doing 20, 30 minute, 40-minute sessions, and you're like, actually, I just want to wake up in the morning and do 2 hours or 3 hours in one sitting, and that's it. And if that works for you, that's great. That would never work for me. But I'm an oboist, right? That I would get so fatigued. Maybe if you play an instrument where you can do that, maybe that's what you'll do, right? So just find that schedule balance for you. And a great tool to plan your practice, analyze your practice, and analyze that schedule is a notable practice journal. You can use my code. It is in the description and the show notes, and I will also put the link to where you can get your journal as well in the show notes, in the description as well. And the last thing is getting inspired by other people, whether that is other people by going to the symphony, maybe that is playing with other friends, like other students, other musicians, or even doing something as kind of strange as going to the ballet. And that really works for me. Whatever works for you, it might not be the ballet, but something that just whatever gets you inspired, doing more of that and getting inspired by other people. All right, that is about it for this episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did enjoy this episode, please do show it all the love. Like, subscribe, follow, comment, share this episode with all of your musician friends so we can all be motivated in the practice room. And I will see you in the next episode. All right, take care. Bye-bye.